Today, we're looking closely at Anglo-Irish politics, specifically a pretty high-stakes moment.
That's right.
Our sources focus on this really powerful intervention by a major political figure, and interestingly, delivered far from her usual stomping grounds.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're interested in how identity, law, the peace process, how these things are playing out right now in political strategy, this is for you.
Absolutely. We're diving into recent statements by Sinn Féin President Mary Lou McDonald, and the setting, as you said, is key.
Right.
She gave this speech at a Sinn Féin event, but it was held at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool.
Which is quite a statement in itself.
Exactly. This wasn't just talking to the party faithful back home. It felt like a very deliberate choice to confront these issues right on the doorstep of the UK government, or maybe the next UK government.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
We seem to have two core challenges that McDonald laid out, and both lean really heavily on the Good Friday Agreement. So our mission here is to kind of dissect the language, understand the link she's making between these two things, rejecting these proposed digital IDs, and pushing for Irish unity prep, and maybe figure out why the opposition is so fierce right now.
Yeah, and while it's quite skillfully done, rhetorically speaking, she uses what seems like a technical issue, the ID card,
Right.
to build this constitutional argument, which then lets her pivot to the much, much bigger question of sovereignty.
Okay, let's start with that first one then, the immediate flashpoint.
Yeah.
The digital ID cards. She gave it a memorable name right away, didn't she? The BritCard.
She did. Very colorful.
Before we get into why she rejected it so strongly, maybe remind us, what exactly was the UK government planning with this card? What was it supposed to do?
Okay, yeah, good point. So the background is that the UK government proposed these digital IDs largely, in response to post-Brexit needs, things like travel, security.
Streamlining thing.
Kind of, yeah. Streamlining, identification, maybe access to certain services, especially for people who don't hold UK passports. But the key thing is, the plan was meant to apply across the whole UK.
Including Northern Ireland.
Including Northern Ireland, yes. Essentially replacing or planning to replace older ID systems with this new mandated digital framework.
So on paper, it sounds almost bureaucratic, maybe a bit technical, but McDonald immediately framed it as a constitutional battle. She warned Sinn Féin would fight any move by the British government to force these cards onto Irish citizens in the north.
Absolutely resist.
Called the whole plan ham-fisted, ludicrous,
Yeah.
and basically said it's a total non-runner.
That language is pretty definitive, isn't it? It slams the door shut, leaves very little room for discussion.
Right.
But the real strategy, I think, is in how she justifies it. It's not just opposing red tape.
No.
It's framed as an identity issue. She argues that because people in Northern Ireland have that constitutional right to identify as Irish.
Which comes from the Good Friday Agreement.
Exactly, explicitly enshrined in the GFA. She argues no single government, like the UK government, has the right to impose an ID card that essentially only recognizes UK authority or UK mandates.
Okay, that's the crucial link. So what is it in the Good Friday Agreement about identity that makes this specific ID card proposal, a violation in her view? We know people can hold both British and Irish citizenship.
Yeah.
How does a new UK-issued card potentially undermine that dual identity aspect?
No, the GFA is fundamentally built on principles like parity of esteem, dual identity. It guarantees the birthright of everyone born in Northern Ireland to identify and be accepted as Irish or British or both. That's foundational.
Okay.
So if the UK government mandates a digital ID, which is, a primary tool of how the state recognizes you, and that ID is designed and issued solely by London, likely focused on UK services.
It's one-sided.
Exactly. McDonald's argument is that this undermines the parity, the balance that was promised in the agreement. It tilts the scales back towards a singular British identity framework.
It really reframes the whole thing, doesn't it? It stops being about, is this card convenient, and becomes, is the UK government trying to chip away at a fundamental right from the peace deal?
Precisely. And she directly accused them of not thinking about this. She said something like, no thought had been given to people in Northern Ireland when the plan was first hatched.
Wow.
By calling it the BritCard, she very successfully frames it as a unilateral UK action impinging on Irish identity rather than just some administrative update.
And she didn't just leave it as a warning.
No.
She was speaking at the Labour conference, as you said, and directly challenged Keir Starmer, the Labour leader.
Yep. Called on him to pause and reconsider this plan.
So she's putting pressure on the opposition before they potentially get into power. Very strategic.
Highly strategic, trying to lock them into opposing the policy now.
Okay, so that sets up the next part perfectly. She's fiercely defended existing Irish identity rights under the GFA against this BritCard. And then she immediately pivots to the bigger picture, realizing the full potential, perhaps, of that Irish identity through constitutional change. Unity.
Absolutely. If the first part was about defense, this next part is about demanding progress on sovereignty.
Right. She criticized both governments here, didn't she? London and Dublin.
Yes, accused both of burying their heads in the sand about Irish unity, basically saying they're ignoring the political direction of travel.
She singled out the Prime Minister and the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, saying it's just not sustainable for them to keep ignoring these calls for unity. This feels like more than just complaining, though. She seems to be demanding something specific. What is the actual action she wants them to take?
The demand is about preparation. It's about starting the practical work.
Okay.
McDonald emphasized that both the UK and Irish governments have already committed, legally, through the GFA, to hold referendums on unity if certain conditions arise.
Right. If it looks like a majority in Northern Ireland might want it.
Precisely. So her point is, given political shifts, demographic changes, everything that's happened, the government shouldn't just wait for that moment to suddenly arrive. They need to start preparing now for how those referendums would actually work.
Which implies she thinks those conditions either are met or are getting very close.
It certainly suggests she believes the conversation is unavoidable and imminent.
Why push for preparation now specifically? What's the difference practically between preparing and not preparing?
Well, not preparing is actually a political act in itself, isn't it?
How so?
Preparation means serious, detailed planning. You're talking healthcare systems, education, pensions, tax, legal frameworks. How would it all work across the island if governments refuse to even start that planning?
It signals they don't think unity is a real possibility anytime soon.
Exactly. It dismisses it as distant or hypothetical. McDonald is arguing that the current context, post-Brexit realities, which really changed Northern Ireland's position, plus the internal demographic shifts, means that delaying preparation is actually irresponsible. It's negligent.
So she's framing inaction not as just being cautious, but as a failure of governance. That gives her a strong position to argue from.
It does. It puts the onus back on the governments.
Yeah.
And it's a different kind of pressure than the ID card fight. That was about stopping something specific.
Right, blocking a policy.
This is about activating something already agreed upon, a commitment that's already there in the GFA.
So she's really using the Good Friday Agreement in two ways here.
Absolutely. It's like the shield and the sword, you could say.
Okay.
The shield defends identity rights against the BritCard. The sword demands action on the constitutional path towards unity laid out in the agreement itself.
There's a real consistency there.
There is. She's linking them.
Yeah.
If you truly respect the GFA's guarantees on identity, you must also respect its mechanism for potential constitutional change via referendums.
That really synthesizes it well. Her whole argument seems to be, treat the GFA not just as some historical peace treaty, but as a living, breathing legal framework that has to shape current policy and future plans. You can't just cherry pick the bits you like, respect identity here, but ignore the sovereignty path there.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the bigger picture, the strategic use of the Good Friday Agreement. It's fascinating how McDonald effectively weaponizes it.
Weaponizes, that's a strong word.
Well, maybe uses it very forcefully. She takes its principles and applies them to contemporary issues, even technical ones like a digital ID, framing them as potential constitutional breaches.
Which elevates the issue immediately.
It really does. It forces London and Dublin to engage at the highest political level rather than dismissing these things as just, minor regional administrative issues.
Okay. So for you listening, you now have the specific language, the context that Sinn Féin, through Mary Lou McDonald, is using to frame these two really significant policy challenges aimed at both London and Dublin. This deep dive really shows how something that seems technical, like an ID card, or something long-term, like unity prep, can quickly become major flashpoints because they tap right into those fundamental questions about national identity and those existing foundational political agreements.
Absolutely. And let's just circle back to where this all happened. She was speaking at a Labour Party conference event in Liverpool, England.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on. What is the actual leverage Sinn Féin gets by making these very forceful demands about identity and unity outside the usual Northern Ireland political bubble?
Is she trying to shape the thinking of a potential incoming UK government?
Or maybe demonstrating back home that she can take the fight directly into the UK political mainstream, showing strength.
Interesting angle. What's the real strategic payoff of that specific stage? Something to mull over as you think about the wider game being played here.